You're asking, as many people do, about the coffin road, but actually there isn't a coffin road. There's a series of coffin roads. It's the one that's used by the tourist board and the visitors now is the one that goes from Shellabust across to Lachalee, or to be more accurate, the opposite direction. Originally still is Bealach Craig and Yawn in Gaelic, the Bealach, the pass, Craig, the rock, Yawn of the bird, an eagle in that case. So it's the eagle's nest pass, if you like. But it's better known as the Coffin Road since I suppose one of Peter May's novels about potato stories set in the islands uses that as a title. It's a catchy phrase. What was a coffin road? Well, in the story of Harris, most of the very old settlements, and because of that the churches and the graveyards, were on the Mucker shore, where it's sandy and you can dig. But in the middle 1700s, people started moving across to the east coast of Harris, which is extremely rocky and barren. And there was a difficulty when somebody died there. You physically couldn't dig to make a cemetery on that side of the island. And in any case, people wanted to reconnect to the old family homes anyway. So the trails through the hills were used to carry the coffins or bodies, whichever, from where the people had died across to where the burial grounds were. Now, one of the ancient burial grounds was in Shellabust. There's no trace of it now. It's one of the stories of the clearance period that when John Stewart, the farmer in Luskinter, took over Shellabust, he not only evicted the living people, but he evicted the dead ones as well, as they ploughed up the old graveyard. It's where Crotton Hill is now, on the way down to the school, to the late school. So one of the visitors at the time is in print as saying that he's talking about the sea cutting in somewhere else, and mentions the sea being as rapacious as Donald Stewart, who ploughed the graveyard that was in Shellabust. And for years bones and skulls were rolling about on the surface of the ground. And the slightly macabre addition he's got to that was, and the land needed no manuring for years, which is slightly grisly. Anyway, besides, so you got the picture that the market villages were cleared of the people 1820s, 1830s. So almost the whole population of Harris was living after that in the bays. And although the burial grounds were used, you came across through the Bealach. You can tell from the route that the track takes, and still does, it was heading for Shellabust, because it's on the wrong side of the bay. The present graveyard is in Luskinter, on the north side of the bay, but you had to cross the river to get to that. So you can see the original route was different. Where people were carried from about what's now called Behead, kind of eye at Arbey, Lachalee. They carried through there. In due course, the road was used enough. It was upgraded into what I call a green road, a turf-built causeway leading through the wet bits onto the top of the Bealach, and then quite a reasonable road, track anyway, from there down to where the causeway is now in Shellabust. So at that time, it came down to the head of the bay. There's lots of stories about the use of the coffin roads, but one thing that was common to all of them, they went over a hill, and so naturally you stopped for a rest at the top. And the habit grew up that where you stop for a rest, some of the local stone that was plenty lying around the top there was built into a cairn. And so you can see the route, everywhere a coffin stopped, then there's the little cairns at the side of the way. And they're still there, dozens of them on the top there. It's, you know the phrase in Gaelic, clap of the arm, putting a stone on your cairn, on your memory. So it comes from there. And there was another one too on what's now the main road, going from Marchasig to Stornoway, because of the burial ground in Marrig. Because Marrig, although it's on the east coast, there is some soil there. It's a nice fertile farm. And there's a graveyard there. It's one of the old ones, because Ulster Charortach and Rodel is on record as having rebuilt 3 churches: Rodel, the temple at Northern, and the temple in Marrig, and probably the one in the old burial ground in Scarp as well. There was a burial ground here. And this chap somewhere out the North Harris Road had died. And the funeral party was taking the coffin to Marrick. And again a foul day, it all seemed to be a foul day. But a really foul day. And I don't know if you've been over that Bialach, but the wind that catches you at Kimnavat is quite something. They're coming over off the Seaforth side. And they've been struggling against it for a while, and when they got there, they just could not go any further. And there's a loch there at the top of the Bialach beside the road. Loch na Keisha, which tells you something. And they decided, well, we can't just leave them, and yet we can't go down there either, the whole way to Marrick. So we'll bury him for safety in the loch, where animals and stuff can't bother him. And in the Keisha is still there, in Loch na Keisha, and Bialach na Keisha, it's still there.